This is the Extra Point Podcast from Arizona's family.
All right, are we ready? Are we ready for some football? We are closing in on kickoff for the Arizona Cardinals Sunday in the nation's capital. The NFL season underway as we speak with the Kansas City Chiefs and the Detroit Lions going head-to-head. So let's talk about it. Let's talk to a man who's been in the Cardinal locker room every day of the offseason, getting set for the season opener, and will be there all year. We're talking about the one, the only Jose Romero joining us from AZ Central. And Jose, how are you feeling as we approach kickoff here to the Cardinal season?
I'm pretty excited, man. I mean, as you know, like, it's a pretty cool gig that we have, you know, covering sports and getting paid to watch games and go to practices and talk to people and get to know people and stuff. So this is my 9th season as an NFL beat writer, my 2nd with the Cardinals, and I'm pretty happy, man. I'm excited. I mean, you know, it's probably going to be a tough year for the team, but for me personally, professionally, you know, I never really work a day in my life, so it's great.
Yeah, absolutely preach. That's something we all got to keep in mind, even during a season that maybe the team won't be, you know, a playoff contender. Like, I mean, we're going into the season thinking that. How do you think the Cardinals are going into the season? What kind of sense do you get around the locker room as far as just all of the prognostications kind of tend to say, let's start preparing for the NFL draft here?
Well, I think there's pretty good buy-in from the players into what Coach Jonathan Gannon wants from them. I think guys really seem to like the assistant coaches, the staff. There's a respect there for General Manager Monty Ossenford and what he's trying to do. And, you know, it seems like it's a pretty positive place, you know, in the locker room, at practice, there's good energy. And I mean, why wouldn't there be? I mean, these guys really don't have anything to lose. They're really playing to maintain a job, to keep their job in the NFL. You know, some guys have some longer contracts and they're going to be around, but there's a lot of guys here who are on 1-year deals. And in the NFL, as you know, it's not for long, right? So if you don't produce and if you're not doing what, if you're not giving something to the team that the coaches and management want, you can be gone. So there's excitement there. I think guys have something to play for, and it could translate into some surprising wins this year.
Yeah, and anybody who quotes Jerry Glanville here on the podcast can become a regular. I mean, Jerry Glanville was the Houston Oilers coach when I was a kid. He wore all black, even though the Oilers' colors were Columbia blue. And, you know, they were wildly entertaining. He left tickets for Elvis and was one of the great characters in NFL history. Jonathan Gannon, meanwhile, seems to be drawing the ire of Philadelphia Eagle fans left over from having the double-digit lead in the second half of the Super Bowl. Do you think that bothers him at all? Do you get any sense that's something that might be impacting him in the opener here?
I don't think so. I mean, you know, you kind of have to say, you know, that you would like to come back and be a part of the staff, especially after you won the NFC Championship. But we all know that if a head coaching job comes available and you get interviewed for it and you're in the running to be an NFL head coach, how are you going to pass that up? So, you know, he seems to do a pretty good job of compartmentalizing things. You know, the performance by the Eagles in that Super Bowl, I was there, you were there. And it wasn't great. And it was kind of a collapse there in that second half. And they were really exposed by Kansas City. But the Eagles have a championship, right? So not a whole heck of a lot they can complain about. I think it'll become a storyline once again, once we get closer to that meeting at the end of the year.
Certainly. Well, where do you expect the Cardinals to be when that game rolls around in late December and the Cardinals go to Philadelphia? I mean, with a quarterback that's never taken a snap for the franchise, who got here 2 weeks ago, going to start in the opener against a ferocious defensive front in the Commanders, I don't have a lot of hope for Week 1. Where are you finding hope this year the Cardinals can be competitive?
I mean, they might sneak up on a couple teams. I think, you know, those games with the Rams might be pretty competitive because they're not looking very good either. And, you know, again, this comes down to, you know, how much heart and how much, you know, spirit that these players have to try to go out. They're playing kind of with house money here. So they could surprise somebody and they could get, you know, maybe more than 4 or 5 wins. But I don't really see anything beyond that because, you know, it's a tough league. And when you're rebuilding, Rebuilding means it's going to take you some time to get where you want to be. Fortunately, in the NFL, these rebuilds can go pretty quick.
Yeah, how long? I mean, I've heard up to you can rebuild an NFL roster in 2 years. As far as your opinion on that, as you study the league, how quickly do you think the Cardinals, depending on if Caleb Williams, let's say option one is Caleb Williams is the quarterback here, they find a way to move on from Kyler Murray, or there's no moving on from Kyler Murray. They've said publicly that they think he's a franchise quarterback. If they get a haul of draft picks, you could conceivably plug a lot of positions and hit on some. How quickly do you think the Cardinals could be back in the conversation of, well, maybe they'll be playing, on Arizona's Family CBS 5 in the postseason at some point?
Yeah, I mean, probably not. I would be shocked if it's this year, and I would actually be pretty surprised if it's next year too. So I'm thinking that, they stockpile picks. At this point, maybe they stick with Kyler, and in a couple years after the 2024 season, maybe in 2025, they're able to contend. We've seen at other teams, with young talent mixed with good veterans, rise up and get into the playoffs. And it can happen pretty fast because anything can happen on these game days, on Sundays and Monday and Thursday too. I mean, you can't, there really aren't a lot of locks in this league from week to week. Now against the Cardinals, you might have a few, but it goes pretty fast. And I think people will see that Monty has a direction that he wants to go, and people just kind of have to be patient with it.
What are some of the areas this year that you think fans can rally around? Who could be kind of one of those breakout players who, when you look back and the team's competitive again, you think, here's where it started, here's where they got their opportunity?
Yeah, I think Michael Wilson, the wide receiver from Stanford, has a really good opportunity to show something here this year. I mean, here's a guy that was injured like the last couple of years of his college career. Otherwise, he might have been drafted a lot higher. Everybody who's worked with him, everybody who's seen him, observed him, speaks really highly of him. The guy obviously has great character, says all the right things, talking about him being a team first guy. And he's big and he's physical and fast. And you want to have that when you have receivers like a Hollywood Brown or a Rondale Moore who aren't on the big side but fast. So you can kind of put that unit together that way and have good balance. I think Michael Wilson has a chance to make a big contribution this year. And on the defensive side, I mean, we've talked about guys who have something to prove or are playing with something to prove. Josh Woods is a linebacker they got from Detroit who's looked like he's going to be a starter this week. And he's been a special teams guy most of his career, hasn't gotten a lot of chances to play linebacker. But I think we're going to see something from him fairly quickly because he's going to be in that lineup right away.
What should we expect out of Josh Dobbs, a guy who got here 2 weeks ago and has never taken a snap for this franchise until what we presume will be his first snap and his first start in Washington? Just the Cardinals aren't going to tell us that probably until he trots out on the field, right?
Yeah, well, you have to like the way he's talking about, wanting to be a part of the team, wanting to get to know the guys. He's coming in with at least some familiarity of the offense, Drew Petzing's offense. His center, Froholt for the Cardinals, they were together in Cleveland last year. So there are some pluses there to having Josh Dobbs as your starting quarterback. Now, Josh hasn't played a ton. I mean, he hasn't had a lot of starts from the league. So, what are we really going to get here? What can we expect? I think you're looking at a guy who's going to try to manage this game. They're going to try to get the ball in the hands of James Conner quite a bit and try to keep it close with that defense.
Speaking of that defense, this Commanders defense, as you study them, do they look like a team that could contend for the NFC Championship with that defense?
I don't think so. I think that division's pretty stacked. I mean, I think the Giants are better. I think the Cowboys are always good. Washington was, I think, 8-1 last year. So there's some promise there. And Ron Rivera is a pretty good coach. It could be a really tough division this year in terms of records and parity and things of that nature. I'm not sure if they're ready. They have some issues here. Looks like their injuries are going to be in a good situation on Sunday with Terry McLaurin, the wide receiver, and maybe Chase Young, the defensive end, who's going to be tough to stop on the pass rush. But I don't know if they're quite ready. I mean, the NFC has 3 or 4 pretty good teams. Not sure the Commanders are one of them.
So who do you have in your, say, Final Four? Have you made a Super Bowl pick yet publicly?
I haven't made one.
Would you like to make one here on the Extra Point?
I mean, I keep believing in Buffalo, man. I keep believing in them because they seem to have what it takes: a good defense, a great quarterback, some pretty nice pieces around Josh Allen. But the AFC is so loaded, and Kansas City is always going to be tough. I mean, in the NFC, maybe Dallas, maybe Philly again, maybe the 49ers. I really think that this is the AFC. This is a league that's going to be AFC dominated again. I think the AFC is going to prevail when it comes down to it in the Super Bowl.
All right, so you're saying crown the Chiefs. Is that the game's on right now? Should we just fast forward to the end of the season, hand them the trophy, and line it up again next year and get to the draft?
Like Dennis Green said, go ahead and crown him. You want to crown him, go ahead and crown him. I'll stop there.
All right, we'll play this back tonight in case the Lions, rise up and shock the world. All right, where can we see your stuff this weekend in Washington? Where can people follow along with what's going on and hear your perspective and see your perspective?
Yeah, I'm going to be out there this weekend. Pretty excited to. It's always fun to travel for an NFL road game, so I'll be there representing Arizona Republic, azcentral.com. We'll be doing live updates in the middle of the game, myself and Bob McManaman. And we'll have coverage after the game and lots of content, lots of things going on. So that first game is always exciting.
And your Oregon Ducks, I mean, could they win the Pac-12 here the last year of it? Are you feeling confident?
Man, I'm telling you, Bo Nix looks good. He looked good in the first game, but it was only against Portland State. So I think this weekend against Texas Tech is a much bigger test. On the road, they're facing the former quarterback.
Chuck, who's from Hamilton, right?
Yep. So they're facing him, and I still think they're a lot better than Texas Tech. But the Pac-12 could be a gauntlet, man. They went 13-0 in the first week 1, week 2 of the season. Everybody won, so it could be tough. I don't know if they're a Pac-12 championship team because there's a lot of really good teams there in there: Washington, Utah, USC. We'll see what happens.
All right, and to think if Oregon would have, stayed with the rest of the group here, that could have been a Big 12 matchup against Texas Tech. But, you guys had to leave and mess up all of college football. So thanks, Jose. Appreciate you guys doing that.
I'm gonna really miss the Pac-12.
I am too. But hey, I'm not missing a tweet of yours or a story of yours with Arizona Republic covering the Cardinals. So hey, thanks for coming on and have a wonderful football evening.
Thanks, Mark. Appreciate it. Take care.
The Extra Point Podcast is a production of 3TV, CBS5, and azfamily.com in Phoenix, Arizona.